What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the latest episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast. I'm Zachary, Neel, my co-host over there, Jonathan Stewart. Jay Stu, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Just glad to be alive, man.
You're a busy man. I'm seeing you all over social media. You got your hands in a lot of different pots. I'm very happy to have you today. We're not scheduling on our normal day because of Big Ten Media Days. We wanted to kind of capture that traffic, but I'm happy that you were able to fit me into your very busy schedule. It means a lot.
No, it's interesting. I was in Myrtle Beach yesterday doing a speaking engagement, and Myrtle Beach is an interesting place. It's like Jersey Shore, but in the South.
Uh-huh.
Um, so just leave it there. But it was nice. It was a nice drive, and got a lot of phone calls in. Always going on those long drives, and like, oh man, I can get productive now with Bluetooth and everything. So,
There you go. See, that's
uh,
one of the reasons I want one of, like, a Tesla, a self-driving car, 'cause it's like the amount of work I could get done on these
yeah,
just normal little road trips. Driving up to Portland, man, I could get a ton of work done.
yeah, exactly.
We've got a jam-packed show today. There's a lot that has happened since we talked last, a lot going on right now. A million things to talk about. Later in the show will be part 3, our final part of the Big Ten show and tell. But the Ducks were also on center stage today at the Big Ten Media Day in Indianapolis. So let's start there. Let's go back to the beginning of the week. I'm assuming you did see, there's no way you could miss it, the giant inflatable duck that they rolled out in Indianapolis to announce their presence at the Big Ten Media Day. What were your thoughts on this?
Oh man, it's. I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised, right?
Right?
But
Exactly.
but at the end of the day, it's awesome, man. Like, they're basically displaying their readiness, and just wanting to make a big statement this year in the Big Ten. Creativity. They made a splash, literally.
Mhm. Absolutely.
See what I did there?
I like
Splash.
it. I like it.
But what better way, to set the standard of enthusiasm, creativity, all the things that you know Oregon stands for in all sports. Um, it's awesome to see them taking advantage of this opportunity. Um, just making themselves really feel at home. Literally, if there's a river there, we can live. So
There you
here we
go.
come.
There you go. It's just it's so classic Oregon. When I saw that, I was camping over the weekend and I got service and saw that and I was like, "Yep, that not at all surprised that this is what they did," because it was, a little bit less than a year ago that they unveiled the Bo Nix Heisman billboard in New York, and it's like, yeah, that's just one of those giant Oregon statements. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they do a similar thing with Dylan Gabriel this year because he's one of the favorites to win the Heisman. So I was kind of
Hmm.
looking at my calendar and be like, oh yeah, that was August 24th or something that they unveiled the billboard for Bo Nix. I wonder what they're doing for Dylan Gabriel this year. So kind of got to keep your head on a swivel for that.
Yeah, man, got to win games. But this
Got
is
to
a
win
great
games.
start for sure, winning the hearts of the nation.
Yeah. Did you get to watch Dan Lanning's press conference this morning at Big Ten Media Day?
Yeah, man, I did. He did a great job, and obviously he carries himself like he always does. And I think press conferences like that again is an opportunity to really showcase who you are as an individual, but also representing, a college and an organization in a mighty way.
He looked a little bit different than your guy, Deshaun Foster did yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, shout out to
I don't
shout out to
mean to throw
Deshaun,
shade at
man.
Deshaun.
Yeah, we
Man,
don't want
I
to throw
I
no
feel bad
shade,
for
but
him.
I think maybe he wasn't prepared. Maybe something was going on with the mic. Maybe you know
Yeah, you can
someone
say that.
did. I don't think we. I think everything like that always has a backstory that people don't
Yeah.
really know about, and maybe someone pissed him off, and he wasn't really ready to talk, and who knows?
I don't mean to throw shade. I mean, I see videos like that and I feel bad because I also don't like public speaking, and it looked to
Yeah,
me like he was just someone up there was like, "Oh, I am in a room full of a lot of people
yeah,
and on TV, and I don't know what to say, so I'm gonna just
yeah.
kinda close up real quick." So, yeah,
It,
that
but
was,
it, but it but it definitely, when you see stuff like that, it goes to show you how much goes into coaching. It's not just coaching the kids in the locker room. It's being able to really be the representation of a team, and not just a team, but a college. a whole entire college. Like you have legacies after legacies, and you're there to represent that. You're there to raise money. You're there to delegate, and if you can delegate, you can focus more on ball. So maybe he's doing a really good job delegating, and his mindset is just ball right now.
What I loved is that, Dan Lanning really good at just capturing the moment and kinda putting the attention not just on him, but on the
Hmm.
Oregon program a lot. He
Yeah.
did that a couple times today after his media press conference, but I don't know if you saw this. He was talking, I think it was to, ESPN where, the conversation about NIL and Oregon's quote unquote "unlimited NIL budget" came up like we were talking about last week, and he dropped one of his, he's always got a way of like sneaking in these classic sayings and these classic quotes that you don't know, they sound like they could be old sayings from the Midwest, or he might have just made them up on the spot. Last year at media day, we were talking about his contract buyout, and he said, when you talk about breakfast, the chicken, he pops out an egg, he's committed. The pig, he's all in. It's like, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good quote. It makes sense.
It's a great quote.
Today, when talking to ESPN about the notion that Oregon has unlimited NIL, he said, everyone else right now is focused on our ice cream cone. And if I'm busy looking at theirs, that means mine's melting. It's like,
Oh, that's a great quote because I
yeah,
have a quote like that too about grilled cheese that I got from Steve Smith. If you focused on my grilled cheese and you're cooking a grilled cheese, your grilled cheese is going to burn up while worrying about mine.
there
So
you go.
pay attention to your own, grilled cheese. Otherwise, it's going to burn up because all it takes is like that 30 seconds of looking away.
Yeah.
And if you're eating
I'm
an
just
ice cream
sleeping.
cone, if you're eating an ice cream cone and you're outside trying to be nosy about your neighbor and it's a hot day, 30 seconds goes by, you're gonna have ice cream all over your hand.
Yeah. I love it.
I
Yeah,
love it
so
too.
he actually got the quote from you. All right, good to know.
No, he did not get that quote from me about the ice cream, and the grilled cheese did not come from me. It's all Steve Smith. So
Steve Smith. All right.
maybe Steve got it and he heard it and he's like, "Oh, it's just like ice cream." I don't know, but either way, that is an amazing quote and
Great quote.
an amazing mindset. Which then leads me to I was watching the Big Ten network on YouTube, watching his press conference there, and he was talking about the book Unlocking Potential. Tell
Mhm.
me what your thoughts on that is.
I love it that that he goes into this stuff and, like, gives his team, like, a reading list in the summer. It's like, "Hey, go get smarter and get some wisdom real quick," and I think he said they also reading The Art of War.
Hmm.
Just stuff like that. He's always trying to find that little edge, and I love it. It's innovative. It's not even really innovative. It's just back to the roots. People have
Yep.
been reading since the beginning of time, and the fact that he's getting his team when people don't read that much anymore. I love that he's actually trying to get them to do that.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, it's an opportunity really that he has to develop these guys not just as football players, but as men, as individuals. Like
Mhm,
it's obviously these books are all predicated around character. I want to
mhm,
build your character first because you can have all the skill in the world, but character creates a great culture, right? And so that's really cool that he's implementing different ways of unlocking these guys' potential. And what better way to read a book called Unlocking Your Potential? So
mhm,
kudos to him for just challenging these young men to read because not everybody likes to read,
mhm.
but it's going to pay off in the long run. Pick up a book. Not everybody's doing it these days. Everyone just goes to AI and gets cliff notes, and they wonder why they can't remember anything.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I don't know if you saw this. This was actually the more interesting quote from Lanning. It happened right before we got on, but he went on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, and the conversation about unlimited NIL came up, and they were talking about Kirby Smart and Georgia and what he said a couple weeks ago. And Dan said, I think it's impressive that guys like Kirby have been signing the number one class in the nation without any NIL money this entire time. Just kind of throwing a little bit of lob back at his former boss. It's like, that's
Yeah,
the stuff I love from Dan. It's like he's not afraid to, say to, acknowledge
call
the
it what it
elephant in the
is.
room. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
call it what it is, man. Like everybody right now, it's. I think it's awesome. Keep talking about Oregon. Everyone that is hating, keep on hating.
Yeah.
Once we're sitting there at the end of the year, I really feel like we have an opportunity to really be national champions this year.
Well, you know who else does is ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit. He
Of
also
course.
went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and he said, "quote Look out for Ole Oregon. I look out for Oregon Ducks. I think I may have Oregon winning it all this year."
Yes, you may.
Um, that's interesting. There's
Yes.
so much hype around them this year. I don't know. Part of it scares me. Part of it's like, all right, this is deserved.
And yeah, I mean, but I feel comfortable about it. I mean, going back to, the ways of Dan right now, we're going to call it the ways of Dan.
I like that. The
The
ways of
ways of
Dan.
Dan. He's looking at this whole season as a holistic viewpoint. I need my guys to be able to have the bandwidth to last the whole season.
Mhm,
You got to have it mentally, man. And if you have a coach that has it mentally and you're learning and you're, a sponge, like all these kids, man, they're young and they get an
mhm,
opportunity to be around a guy that has the energy, that has the wherewithal, that has his priorities straight. I mean, his family time. He really like pours into his family as much as he can with this job that expects so much from him. And these young guys are seeing that. You know what I'm saying? Going to their head coach's house and being able to be around their family and understanding like this is more than just, going to college and playing football and going to my classes and getting good grades for a degree of some sort. This is an opportunity to really build relationships. This is an opportunity to build something that will mean something 10 years down the road. Like I'll be able to call one of my old teammates up like a brother, you know what I mean? Like family. If something goes
mhm.
wrong, it's going to impact me like family. I mean, obviously the turn of events with Kyrie, passing, you know, having that unit already established probably made this a lot easier for those guys to go through something so hard, knowing that they already have a family unit
Mhm.
and that bond that just is there, and you get closer in these moments, man, and you realize that you're away from your family and you're going to go through a lot of different experiences, a lot of ups and downs, and that's what really makes, like that's what builds character. That's what allows guys to elevate by having a community, a family experience that makes it bigger than football. And
Well,
that's what I really appreciate about Dan.
and one thing that's become really apparent is that, when he doesn't know the most about something, he's super willing to go find who does know the most about it
Mhm.
and learn from him. He said today in one of the many interviews he did, I forget which one it was, but he said that him and his coaching staff, they've reached out to several NFL teams this year just to learn about what it's like playing a longer season and playing, they could play up to 16, 17 games this year when they're used to playing 12 or maybe 13. So they're trying to learn how to stay healthy and trying to, keep that
Yeah.
health and the depth and all of the just the longevity of the season. It's stuff like that that like, they're kind of taking that extra step to just learn a little bit more, which I always love.
Yeah, which establishes and communicates to your players and the college and the whole entire world that A, you have humility and you
Mhm,
don't know it all, which means that a person can trust you with the answers that you give them.
mhm.
So I love it.
Yeah, that's great. One last thing before we get to our Big Ten show and tell. We previewed it last year or last week. We did not get to react to it, but the Oregon uniform unveiling. Shoot, what did they call this one? Why am I blank? Oh, it's the gangrene ones. The
Uh,
gangrene like throwback ones. What'd you think of those?
I love it, man. It's again, it's they just do a good job of blending
Mhm.
history
It's a good
into
mashup.
yeah, like you got the duck, you got the O, and it's like, hey, these are the like almost like, hey, these are the two best of both worlds here,
Well, and
and
the
we're
numbers
getting
on
it.
the shoulders. I love the numbers on the
Oh yeah,
shoulders. They're
oh
so
yeah,
good.
yeah. But again, they continue to blow everyone's minds, and I feel like they're gonna just continue to do that this year.
I was a little bit bummed that we didn't get to see more Joey Harrington in the unveiling. Glad they went with Alex Molden. He was good. That was a nice touch, but I wanted to see some of Joey's jokes. I heard so much about him from him. I wanted to see what he
Yeah,
could get
man.
in there.
Those good dad jokes.
Yeah, Joey's got
Yeah,
him. He's
man.
always got
Yeah.
him. We need to get Joey on here soon.
We'll
We need
get
to
him
talk
on
to
here.
Joey.
Joey, you're gonna be on the show soon. Get ready.
Okay, and breaking news as we record this over in Indianapolis, Dan is still meeting with some media there, and he just announced that cornerback Daylen Austin is expected to play this year. If you remember, Dalen Austin was arrested on the, I think, felony hit and run. I'm sure I'm muddling some of the language there, but arrested awaiting trial, and there were still a lot of details to come out. So they said that he was away from the team for a little bit. But I'll read this quote from Dan. He said, quote, "I'm anticipating, especially without having a result to that. In this situation, I think you have to give the opportunity for him to be able to play. Based on the facts that we have, I don't think we could operate any other way without knowing what we know." So they're continuing to investigate and wait for the details to come out. But it sounds like Dan and his staff feel comfortable enough with what they know in Dalen Austin's story to let him back on the team. They said he's been participating with the team during offseason workouts. So that seems to be really good news. He's a very talented player, a great young man, and seems to be back on the team playing this year.
Oh man, that's great news, and good on them for handling how they are.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, these are young men, and they're gonna make mistakes. And obviously, this was a tragic mistake. Tragic, and hopefully, these are moments for the team, the players have an opportunity to come around him and give him the resources needed to help build him into the man that he needs to be and who he will become. Um, and again, I just think that a lot of people deserve second chances, man. I'm a huge believer in that, and I even think looking at an interview that Nick Saban had about Muhsin Muhammad, right? And just everything that he stood by with everything that Moose went through, and just like, what, you want this guy to end up on the street, or you want this guy to just end up anywhere? Like, just be, people out there get second chances,
Mhm.
and um, and if he can prove to the team, himself, the community, the family that was affected by all of this, that he can rise above and you know go forward in this new opportunity with the right mindset, then this can turn out to be something better than what it is right now.
Well, it's also a really good example of Dan learning from what he's done in the past too. Because last year, I think it was the 2023 spring, I believe it was. There was the incident with Trayshawn Holden where he was, had some legal troubles and stuff like that, and instantly Dan said, he's off the team. And then more details came out, and however long later, I think it was a few weeks, maybe a month later, he said, "You know what? We learned more. Trayshawn's back on the team." It's like, okay,
Hmm.
this time he said, okay, until we find out more, he's
Yeah.
going to be away from the team, but we'll find out more. We'll make the decision. Now today it comes out, it looks like he's back on the team. So
Right.
um, just that's a great way, a good development to see, and happy that Dalen Austin gets a chance to play because I wrote about it a few days ago. I think Dalen Austin could be really good. I don't know where he slots in on this cornerback depth chart, but Dan was super high on him as a recruit coming in.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see what he can do because now they got another really, really good blue chip cornerback in this defensive backfield.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. With the season coming up here in just about a month, we are going to be talking about betting a ton, and all of our numbers are going to be coming from Bet Online. They have every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. After the games, you can go over to the Bet Online casino and get in on some blackjack or poker, unwinding with your favorite slot games. Jay Stu, what's your favorite a gambling game of choice? Do you have one?
Blackjack.
Blackjack. Okay. Why do you like blackjack?
It's one on one until
Mhm.
there's somebody else at the table. But
Yeah.
and I just like that I um, have some type of control over what I do. I guess.
Yeah.
You go to the craps table and it's just like, hey man, it's all luck. It's all
See, I
about
love
how
craps. I'm a craps player. That's my game for sure.
you're so dangerous.
Yeah, sometimes.
You're a true gambler. But
I'm
I
really
like
not.
blackjack and I always stay on 14. And
Stay on 14.
I always stay on 14. And when I see 12, I always hit.
Okay, good to know. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Head over to the website today to get in on all of the action and be sure to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% off free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Again, that's promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get 50% bet credit. Bet online, the game starts here. All right, let's get into our show and tell. One last time, we both have 3 teams to talk about today, so we will try and keep it relatively concise. We weren't the smartest. We kind of got our biggest and most interesting teams out of the way early on, so we've got maybe not the most interesting teams to talk about, but we are going to get through these last few and then get on with the preseason. Jay Stu, you go first. Who did you bring to show and tell today?
Let's go with Northwestern.
Northwestern. Tell me
Yeah,
about them.
man, look, the only exciting thing about Northwestern is that they're building a new stadium and it's going to be state of the art. And
They
another
won't
cool
have it
thing
this
is
year.
they won't have it this year, but the cool thing is they are building I think like 14,000
Mhm.
person stadium, which will be very intimate.
Mhm.
And if they are doing things the right way, coaching, I would be practicing in that stadium as much as possible to where my players are comfortable and to where the traveling teams come there and it's like, this is odd. It's only
Mhm.
14,000 seats.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite, right? When it
I
comes to
mean, it's
Big
basically
Ten.
like a lacrosse stadium.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, man, really nothing to expect here. If they win 4 games, great, but nothing to really talk about. Um, I think they got a coach that is promising, but
Yep.
I think even in his press conferences, yesterday he shed some light on basically saying that they are not anywhere near they're not anywhere near what they need to be.
Mhm.
And when I heard him say that, I just kind of turned the volume down and backed away from that
Yeah.
whole press conference. But
Yeah.
I actually have a good friend of mine that went to Northwestern. He's a mentor of mine, and I'm going to be giving him a lot of hard times this year. So
So let's give David Braun, the Northwestern coach, a little bit more credit. Pat Fitzgerald, who was at Northwestern for what, 15 years? I'm looking up
mhm.
around there, something like that. He got fired right before the season started last year. And so
Oh
David
yeah,
Braun,
yeah. Whenever you go 4-20, yeah,
yeah, he had been
Ugh,
struggling. He was just 1-11 in 2022, and then there was some, I forget all the details of the scandal, but some like player hazing scandal, I think, that he got fired for right before the season. So David
yeah.
Braun stepped in, and they're actually better than I think a lot of people expected. They went 8-5 last year, and they won in the Las Vegas Bowl. I don't think that means they are going to be good again. I think you are probably correct in your assessment that there's not a ton to talk about here, at least in depth for us. But I think I'm at least interested to see what David Braun continues to do now that he's like not operating the Pat Fitzgerald's team and he's kind of building
Mhm.
his own team because he's shown a little bit of promise, but it's still Northwestern.
I mean, they were successful in the running game last year because that's all they had, and they
Hmm.
might be able to rely on that a little bit this year. But they don't really have a quarterback to depend on,
Yep.
and that's just kind of like I don't know, man. Look,
Yep.
they got an F in the offense.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take
That's
some.
that.
You need some firepower, not an
Yeah.
F.
A bowl game would be great for them. That's success. I don't think that's the expectation though, to be honest.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, let's move on to my first team, Maryland. They lost some decent players. They lost their quarterback, Talia Tagovailoa, who tried to get another year. Obviously, that's the younger brother of Tua Tagovailoa. Tried to get another year, was not granted it. They lost their top linebacker, Jayshon Barham. He's actually someone that when he entered the transfer portal, I really wanted the Ducks to try and get him, but the Ducks didn't add any linebackers in the transfer portal, so they must feel really good about who they've got there. They added former North Carolina State quarterback MJ Morris. They've got a high-end 4-star quarterback, Malik Washington, that came in the 2024 class. The win total over under is 7.5. They've got a really good schedule. Maryland misses Ohio State, Michigan, and Washington. For what it's worth, we're doing the, I told you last week we're doing the simulation of Oregon season on College Football 25.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland almost beat Oregon. They missed a game-winning field goal in the final seconds and lost 42-41. So whatever that means, Maryland might be a little bit interesting this year.
Well, hopefully a video game has no has no clue of what's really going on right now.
Considering the fact that Oregon also lost to Illinois in the simulation, I think that we can, kind of throw that out.
Yeah, they don't really know too much.
No,
whoever developed that simulation and the preseason format of college football obviously doesn't know who Oregon is.
Well, so get this, in the simulation between Oregon and Illinois, Oregon had I think it was a 4th and 1 from the 3 or something to get the game-winning touchdown, and instead of running it, they threw the ball and threw a pick six, 103 yards to lose the game to Illinois at home.
Yeah,
it's all right, this is tough. I want to redo this simulation.
Well, make sure you keep track of all the simulations.
Oh yeah, they're all up on DucksWire. You can find them all.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, make sure you guys go check it out on DucksWire. I'm about to go check it out.
Got them all. For Maryland expectations, I think a bowl game is a measure of success. Excuse me. The ceiling is just, kind of be that team that teams have to think twice about before playing. Don't be an automatic win. Can you maybe beat Iowa? Maybe beat USC? Can you give Penn State a test? Other than that, though, I don't think they're going to be in contention for the conference championship or a trip to the college football playoff. A bowl game is probably where they're headed, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who else you got?
I got Purdue.
Oh boy, Purdue.
the Boilermakers.
Yeah. What is a Boilermaker? You have any idea?
I have no clue. You know?
No, let me look that up while you're talking.
Maybe a guy that runs a train or something. My guess is something to do with a train conductor.
It's a tradesperson who builds, maintains, and repairs large metallic structures that store liquids and gases. As far as I can tell, it's nothing to do with a train, but I don't know. Keep going. This is not interesting. I'm going to stop reading.
I don't know, man. I think, Purdue has an opportunity to win 5 games. Okay. They can win games against people like Indiana State. You're going 50-50 with all the other teams like Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern. Mm-hmm. They'll beat Northwestern, I feel like. Yeah. Just because I feel like last year their defense was decent. Just kind of looking at their numbers here and the players, but they're also losing some guys on defense. So I don't know, man. It's not looking good for Purdue.
They're near the bottom of the Big Ten preseason rankings for a reason, and I don't think we need to dive too much deeper into that. If we end up talking about them in the season, we can eat our words here, but let's just go ahead and cap the rest of this preview for Purdue and say that you probably won't need to know much about them in 2024.
Yeah.
This team that I have is a little bit more interesting. The Washington Huskies. Mm-hmm. Where do we start? I could spend the entire time on departures alone. They lost their head coach, Kalen DeBoer. They lost Michael Penix, Romo Dunes, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Troy Fatanu, Braylon Trice. The list goes on. They had 10 players drafted. A lot of players left in the transfer portal after Kalen DeBoer left. Obviously, they bring in Jed Fish from Arizona, Will Rogers, quarterback from Mississippi State, transferred in. There's not a ton to be around him, though. This feels like a classic instance of like in the Super Bowl or in the NFL, like when you have that Super Bowl hangover for a team
Mm-hmm.
where they win a championship with a ton of young players on great contracts, and then the players want to get paid, and so they leave in free agency, and that team kind of struggles to get back up the next couple of years. In UW's case, they had so many veteran players return for one last year, kind of similar to what Oregon's doing this year. And they put all of their chips in. Unfortunately for Washington fans, they couldn't get it done. And so now they have all the repercussions of that without actually having the benefit of winning a championship. So they're it's in a tough spot. They've got a 7.5 win total. I don't know how to accurately set expectations for this season because it feels like no matter what, Husky fans are going to be disappointed, and that national championship hangover is going to kind of last throughout the season. Realistically, I think a bowl game is a success for them, but I don't think any Husky fans would agree because they view themselves as better than that than just marking whether it's a good season or not on a bowl, and they should. I mean, it's a good program that just experienced a downturn right now. I think you try and win 8 to 9 games and prove that you belong in the Big Ten. At least be in that second to third tier of teams in the conference. But I don't know. This could be a really tough year for Washington. I could see a season where they get, 5 to 6 wins.
Yeah, I can see that. It's and you know what? If they win less than that, I would be very happy. I would
That's
throw a
kind of
party.
it's a weird thing for Oregon fans to talk about it because Oregon fans rejoice so much in like this is probably the best time for the Oregon Washington rivalry, despite the fact that Washington's won 3 straight because the future does not look very bright for the Huskies.
Right. Um yeah, so I guess next would be the Wisconsin, which is
Okay,
more exciting.
Wisconsin. They're
More
a good
exciting,
team.
more exciting, more exciting. Um, Coach Luke Fickle.
Mhm.
Um, he's got some departures. Trying to think of the running back last year they had that went to the league, big boy, Braylon something. Uh
I forget his name. I'll look it up.
Braylon Allen. It's
Braylon
gotta be
Allen.
Allen.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, big guy. So, they got some replacing to do. I don't really know too much about, their depth at the running back position, but, playing physical in Big Ten is important. And, losing a guy like that who's obviously larger than life, at that position is going to be tough for them to replace. And, um, yeah, man, I think, they have a chance to make the playoffs. I can see
Mhm.
them winning 7 games.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's all depending on, guys like Will Pauling, their receiver. I think he's their lead guy from last year.
Mhm.
Um, I think their offensive line is their centerpiece. Um, so we'll see. I think it really just comes down to being able to be physical because I feel like that's Wisconsin. That's what Wisconsin wants to do anyway, right?
Mhm. Well, I think a major question for them too is at quarterback. They bring in former Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke.
Mm,
Oregon fans know very well what happens to quarterbacks when Mario Cristobal coaches them.
mm, yeah,
So Van Dyke had a really good career going, and then Cristobal got to Miami and he struggled a little bit. So now that he left there, went to Wisconsin under Luke Fickle, I think he's a defensive head coach, but still a very solid coach and not a micromanager like Cristobal is.
yeah,
We'll see what he
yeah,
can do, and if he's good, he can lead them to some success in the Big Ten. But I'm just very curious to see how high his ceiling really is as a quarterback.
yeah. It's interesting. The Purdue coach. I actually was listening to his press conference, and he was actually talking about how how a head coaching job is basically all about delegating, not
Hmm.
micromanagement.
Hmm.
And it's the same at the professional level. You have to have trust in the assistant coaches, and if you don't have that, then you're going to be all wired out, and your players are going to see it, and everybody's going to walk around, just tight. And you don't want that, right? You don't want a boss, you want a leader. And that's why
Mhm.
we have one of the best coaches in the nation, because we have that.
He delegates. Yeah, I think Wisconsin. I personally am a lot higher on Wisconsin than I've seen a lot of people be going into this year. I think a lot of people are, putting them in that like 6, 7 spot in the Big Ten. I really think they could be in that conversation in November and vie for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. I don't think they'll win the conference. I don't think they'll make the playoff, but I think they can be a team that gives Oregon and USC and other teams like that a real run for their money late in the
Yeah.
year. And Oregon has to go to Madison in November and play them, I think, not that long after they play Michigan. And it's, 2 weeks before they play Washington. That's going to be a tough game. It
Yeah.
could very well be snowing. I was looking up snowfall rates in Madison last night. And it's it does snow in November in Madison sometimes, so that could be a really interesting game for Oregon. I would not look past that if I were a Duck fan.
Yeah. I mean, what I have is basically Ohio State and Oregon, like
Mhm.
championship worthy, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, playoff
Yep.
worthy. But, you know, just because you're playoff worthy doesn't is basically saying you should make the playoffs, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that's where Wisconsin, Nebraska, and USC have those
Yeah.
opportunities to steal some wins and find themselves at the end of the year in a good situation.
Yeah. I think they should be thought about probably as the fifth best team in the conference, and we know what their coach can be. He took Cincinnati to the college football playoff a few years ago, so
Hmm.
I'm excited to see what he can do with that team. All
Yeah.
right, our last show and tell item of the preseason: the thrilling Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Can't wait for this one. They added quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis from Minnesota. They got wide receiver Dymere Miller from Monmouth. Those two should be like two of their best players. They've also got running back Kyle Monangai, who is one of the best running backs in the conference, maybe one of the best in the nation. So those are three players to really watch this year. They lost cornerback Max Melton to the NFL this year. I think he was a second round draft pick. Rutgers is a solid team. They're not gonna beat many people in the conference, but I think they'll be one of those middling teams, kind of in that tier 3 to tier 4. Their win total over under is 6.5. They've got maybe the best conference or the best schedule in the conference. They don't play Oregon, they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Penn State, and they don't play Michigan. Like, you should be able to win 6 other games if you're not playing those teams. So I think they'll probably make a bowl game. I don't expect that much more, but it would be their second straight bowl game, and this is a program that has not seen a lot of success over the past couple of decades. So I think they're on the uptick, but they're not going to be competing for that conference championship anytime soon.
Yeah. But I will say, my nun guy, he's gonna be a guy.
Yeah, he's a good player, isn't he? You
He's a
know,
good
you know better than I do.
Yeah, he's a guy. Last year he was effective in that passing game,
Hmm.
like a sword, like a knife, just cutting guys up. Getting a guy like that in space is dangerous. And so all it takes when you have a guy like that on a team like Rutgers, that's where you have a trap game.
Hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Trap games exist when you have a guy like Kyle, and hopefully, you know, it's not a trap game for anyone next year.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Because I actually I want to see Ohio State at their best. I want to
Hmm.
see ourselves at our best. I want to see Michigan at their best. Like, I want to see Penn State at their best.
Hmm.
I want Oregon to be able to have their first season, and there's like no doubt that they're the top of the top.
Yeah.
And the only way that you have that is when you're beating good teams. So
Hmm.
I want it to be tight all year long, because that's what's going to make it fun.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna wrap up our Big Ten show and tell for the year. I hope listeners enjoyed that and got some good information out of it. I think it was very constructive for us to actually learn these teams that we're gonna be playing against.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry for the Purdue and
that's
you
okay
know,
though.
forgot it. I forgot the other team's name already.
I forgive. Oh, Northwestern.
Northwestern. I'm sorry, to you guys that are, um, passionate about your school, but
You know what?
just
If you're passionate about Purdue and Northwestern, you're probably not listening to this podcast. I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie. I
yeah.
don't think we gotta worry about too much of that.
So go Ducks.
Go Ducks, there we go. Alright, you got, well, actually, let's talk about the next few weeks. So we've got training camp fall camp starts next Wednesday, so we are planning to do a big Q&A, like, kind of an end of the off-season Q&A. So if you're listening to this, please send us your questions. You can do that, on social media, via Twitter, you can DM me or, just tweet at me. You can email me at zacharyneil4 gmail.com just to give me some of those questions. We'll put out more to call to actions about that, but we just want to do, answer all your questions about this upcoming season, give a few predictions. We are working on a few big name guests over the next few weeks too, and have some fun things planned over the next few weeks. But we are just about a little bit over a month out from the season officially starting. So we're gearing up pretty quickly. Once the season starts, we're going to start going to 2 episodes per week as well. One breaking down the game and one giving bigger picture thoughts and previewing the next game. So that's what you can expect from us going forward. Again, if you're tuning in, go subscribe to the show, rate, review, all of that stuff. Help us grow our audience, please, because we've
Yep.
got some good stuff coming.
Yep. Like it, share it, do it all. And make
Absolutely.
sure you follow us on our social platforms and be sure to ask any questions related to Oregon, Big Ten, anything.
Yeah.
And if you have any suggestions as far as guests, please let us know
Yeah.
and we will get that ignited.
Yeah. I really want to stress the Q&A too. This is a time, like, if you have any questions or any things that you want us to talk about with this Oregon team, if it's about certain players or coaches or schemes or opponents, ask them. Let us talk about it and just give us some to discuss on this. So before we get out of here, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right, let's end it right there. You can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Follow Stu on Twitter at Jonathan StewR1. Make sure to check out the Believe in Panthers podcast. For myself, Zach Neel, for my co-host Jonathan Stewart, we will talk to you guys next week. Until then, take it easy.